This is chapter 23 of The God Boy by Ian Cross. I shouldn't complain, I suppose, as I'm alive and kicking, and there's not much doubt that I'm tougher and smarter than most boys my age. I don't care what else God is going to try on me, but whatever it is, he'd better watch his step. Anyway, I've got this feeling that came over me when Sister Frances told me a few weeks after Molly came that Mum would be in the hospital a long time, and that I wouldn't be able to see her for years and years. That's how sick she was. I didn't blubber or anything like that. I just sat there while she talked. Her office is a bare old room, with her only desk and a row of bookcases behind stacked high with papers and books. There's nothing on the walls, not a darn thing, except this big crucifix. She's pretty dried up to look at it, is Sister Frances, and she actually has the shakes. Her hands wobble ever so slightly, and her head nods up and down. As they say about boxers who are getting on in years, she is over the hill. But she's a good old thing, and God can do no wrong as far as she is concerned. Well, I listened away to her, and though I might have pulled a face, I didn't let on about how I felt. After a while, she got up and asked me if I would like to go for a walk with her. So we went down the corridor and out the back door. We walked through the vegetable gardens, and this being early November, everything was fairly kicking it along, the cabbages and silver beet and stuff particularly. As I said, Sister is pretty ancient, and once we were on the clay road behind the convent, she took my hand and said, "You won't mind helping me a little, Jimmy, will you? There are holes in the road, and I would like to have some support in case I trip." I took a firm grip on her hand and nodded, and away we went, dawdling along so that she wouldn't get winded. It was funny that the news about Mum didn't hit me the way Dad's death did. When they first brought me here, I stayed in a bed, doing nothing but cry for days. It wasn't because my hands were hurting either. They had a doctor fix the burns up straight away, although it took months for them to really heal. For a while there, I must have been nearly off my rocker. Then one morning, I woke up and it was all over. Just before I opened my eyes, I thought of how Dad used to say you couldn't keep a Sullivan down, and how he was going to see that I had a better chance than he did. The way he put it sometimes was silly, of course, but he did mean what he said, and I always felt he thought I was somebody pretty good. And there was Mum, always so keen to have me spick and span and looking well, and always doing her best for me. She was proud of me, too. As I said, all this was in my mind just before I opened my eyes, and somehow or other, it hit me so that I sat up right up in bed, hungry enough to eat a horse, and wanted to show everybody that I was as good as anybody else, if not better. That was nearly 2 years ago. Molly really had the laugh on me in the end. I have to hand her that. About 3 months after she had come to see me, she skipped her usual weekly letter, and darn me if about a fortnight went by before I heard from her. Then this letter came with a stamp carrying a picture of a kangaroo sitting on his backside. Molly wrote that she was married to the most wonderful man in the world, and he had taken her to live in Sydney, where he was building her a wonderful house by some beach. In other letters since then, she tells me that he is an old rich man, which is a smack in the eye for me. I never dreamed a man of 35 would be interested in a silly girl like Molly. And this chap must be extremely clever, as he runs a whole airline. If I decide to be a pilot when I grow up, it shouldn't be too hard for me to get a start. Mum writes to me too, not saying much really, and nothing at all about the hospital, of course, except odd little things that don't fool me. I try to write long letters to her, yet often after getting to the bottom of one page, it is hard to think of something else to start another with. I would like to tell her that I know, and that she doesn't have to worry, but that would make it hard for her. So we are both fooling each other, except that I'm not fooled, really. I know she killed Dad. Nobody else wrote to me, not even Joe Waters, excepting Bloody Jack. He sent a note in a dirty old letter addressed to me, care of R.C. Sisters, Raggleton Convent, and Sister Angela posted it on to me. "I'm very sorry I hit you that day on the wharf, because I might have known," said Jack. "There's not much fish as usual. I bet it was you breaking the Hindu's window. He wasn't hurt much. I would have helped you if you had told me, and I hope you're still a friend of old Jack's. There's a lot of new railway stuff here for frozen meat, and it's all painted a funny kind of red." He signed it, "Yours, Jack Crannery," which was the first I knew of his name. I didn't write back to him because he didn't give any address, and what was the use anyway? As for Joe Waters and the rest of them, I understand all right. They're still my friends, yet they wouldn't know what to say in a letter. Neither would I, so it's better all round that we don't try. So now I often think of my mother and father, not really caring. Most nights I go to sleep hearing them talking. It is not all bad, either. Sometimes they are alone with me and I'm hearing again the good times there used to be. Dad will be making me a kite the way he did long ago, and flying it for me too. I'll be in the kitchen in the afternoon after I've come back from school. Mum will make a cup of tea and we will sit there yarning away about nothing in particular. But then come the nights when Joe Waters and I are fooling around with his bike and Dad comes up the road and saying, "Home we go to our loving wife and mother and one more round in the heavyweight championship of the world." Then everything that happened in those 3 days comes back to me. Sometimes, even though I don't care, I can't sleep because this good memory of mine goes into action, making me lie awake for hours and hours. Then for days on end, I get annoyed at God for putting one across on me the way he did. If I had been a big sinner, it would have been different. I was a baby, like other babies, a little boy like other little boys, and I certainly didn't do anything wrong. That's what I have against God. Me so little, and he God. That's why I call him a pain in the neck every so often, and once or twice I've taken communion and bitten the wafer right through with my teeth to try and hurt him. A child should have plenty of sleep, I think, 3 meals a day, with a soft drink now and then, in between if he feels like it. Plenty of room to play about in, and a home that's a little like Christmas morning all the time. Toothache or a cut knee or something would be all right for a child, but not much more than that in the way of pain. Certainly he shouldn't have to worry about his parents, or about anything at all for that matter, except a little about school, how fast he can run, or whether he is going to be good at football, and such mental questions as how big the world really is, all the way around, and what is behind the sky. I was thinking something along those lines as Sister Frances and I were walking that time. By the time we had got past the cowsheds and halfway up the hill beyond, she was so puffed that we had to sit on a log beside the lane. All that green grass, the convent itself looking so big, the animals and trees and all that kind of farm stuff, they were all spread out around us. Sister Frances patted her old face with a handkerchief, tossed off, "Oh dear me," a couple of times, and said that if I didn't mind, she would say some silent prayers. I said it was all right by me, and away she went, while I sat there thinking of Mum and Dad, and why on earth I had ever wanted a bike. I didn't really cry. Then after a while Sister touched me on the head with her hand, making me jump as though I was being woken up. "I suppose we should be getting back, Jimmy," she said. "I'm ready when you are." "Would you like to talk to me about anything? Anything about your mother?" "No, thanks," I told her. "It isn't necessary. Thank you all the same. It's mince for lunch today, isn't it?" "I beg your pardon?" "It's mince today, isn't it?" "I believe it is." "It's Thursday, that's how I know," I said to her as she got up and wobbled back to the lane like a sick black hen. She always wobbles when she first gets up after sitting down for any time. I went over beside her and took her hand in case it made her feel ashamed to have to ask me. She is really very shaky on her pins, is Sister Frances, and together we set off back to the convent. "Jimmy Sullivan," she said, peering down at me and not looking too happy, "God makes little boys stronger than old women in more ways than one." "Yes, sister," I said. "I certainly am very strong. You don't have to worry about me." And darn me, I did feel strong too. I felt as though I could lick the whole world and not give a darn. The feeling lasted for hours afterwards, and ever since then, even when I can't sleep because of this good memory of mine, I tell myself how strong I am, that nothing will ever really get me down.